Hello there, my very good friends. On today's Wrestling News, we're going to tell you all about Lars Sullivan's WWE release, including details of 2 cancelled matches with WWE legends.
Edge is also set to appear on this week's episode of NXT.
Going to tell you all about Edge's new WWE schedule and how often he's going to be around.
And we have backstage news on Matt Riddle's new contract extension, or Riddle, whatever we're calling him these days. I'm Adam Nicholas.
And I'm Andy Murray, and this is the news. Let's kick things off by talking about Lars. This was the big story that broke last night, pretty much as I was heading to bed, actually. I did a quick little last-minute Twitter search, and hey, Lars Sullivan's been released. Okay. He was let go very quietly. WWE didn't even give him a future endeavors message or anything like that. It was PW Insider's Mike Johnson that broke the story last night. But Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp, the good folks over there, have come up with, what am I on about? That suggests they just made it up. They've released a new report with new details. They didn't make it up. That's not what happens in this game. They've released some new details on Lars's WWE release, and apparently he was set for a colossal push when he arrived on WWE's main roster in 2019. It was just after WrestleMania. It was the Raw after WrestleMania. We were there, I should remember this. He beat up Kurt Angle. It was a hell of a deal. WWE were going to push him majorly. He was going to have this incredible focus as a new monster, seemingly, in WWE. But the company dialed back on this when, of course, the message board posts resurfaced just a few weeks after his debut on the main roster. All kinds of horrendous remarks. You know the deal: homophobia, racism, terrible things that man posted on a message board prior to arriving in WWE. Now, this push would have involved, and this is kind of indicative of how huge this push would have been, he was going to wrestle John Cena and Brock Lesnar as part of this push. One of those matches was going to go down at this year's WrestleMania. But all of this was scrapped when those posts came back up. And instead of wrestling Lesnar and Cena, Lars Sullivan ended up being fined $100,000. But it's noted in the report that what derailed Sullivan the most was the serious knee injury that he suffered in June 2019 that kept him sidelined all the way to October 2020. He was out for over a year. It was far longer than the initial 6 to 9 months that was expected, and the issue was at one point considered maybe even career-threatening. And on top of all of this, it's noted that Vince McMahon personally saw the unearthing of Sullivan's pornographic film in December 2019 as something of a final straw. Of course, when we talk about Lars, he returned to WWE programming in October 2020, but that same month, just a few days later, he received allegations of harassment on Instagram that were evidenced by screenshots. So one of the most troubling WWE runs in recent memory. Really just horrendous stuff from start to finish. It was never really going to take off in the company after, the initial controversy and so forth. Some really terrible things that, suggest, I don't know, man. For him, I'm not going to miss Lars Sullivan in WWE at the end of the day. Obviously hope that mentally the guy is doing okay, because there have been reports in the opposite way for him. But at the same time, the stuff he said was horrendous. Awful. And the harassment allegations in October, again, just terrible, gross stuff. So I think the right move on WWE's behalf here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was always going to be hard for him regardless. You don't want to condemn somebody just for something they did in the past. I know that will be the case these days, but maybe you want to give someone a second chance, depending on how you are, but this isn't a second chance. We're talking the list is, as you've just rattled off there, it's as long as your arm.
Terrible.
It's near impossible to defend. And of course, the injuries just didn't help either. If there's one thing to do that will keep or certainly push WWE to go against that grain, is if you're doing something amazing in the company, which seems to be their priority. Obviously, he hasn't provided that, and I just think there's not a lot else I can add to that other than the fact that I'm with you. I think it's a good decision overall, probably maybe for him too in the long run. I don't know. It doesn't sound like maybe he was in the right place either at the same time, but it sounds like it might be best for both in terms of business. However, speaking of best for business, Andy Murray, let's talk about something a little bit better. Let's talk about Edge. Obviously, he has been the talk of the town recently. The man winning the WrestleMania. Well, who knows? He might do. The man winning the Royal Rumble, obviously, over the weekend. And Interestingly, we see that he's popped up on Monday Night Raw. He was also rumoured to be going on SmackDown on Friday. Well, now he will be going to NXT on Wednesday night tonight, this very night. I'm just so excited, Andy Murray. I'm just getting way ahead of myself. But basically, last night, to us anyway, Edge tweeted out the following, saying, "In Orlando to visit my wife. Then I had a thought, WWE NXT needs to get rated R," which was then confirmed by NXT's Twitter account, saying he is headed there tomorrow night. What will the rated R superstar have in store for us? Now, I should point out here, real difficult for me to be objective about this. Subjectively, this is great. I love Edge. I love the fact he's just won the Rumble. He's my favourite wrestler. And NXT, a brand which I think at the minute is kind of struggling. It's idling a lot. It's nice to see him come onto there, and for me personally, a great thing. I'm curious though, Andy Murray, as a man who's slightly more impartial on the matter, and seeing obviously all these statistics about the fact that WWE's performers' age seems to be creeping up and does not seem to be getting any lower, seeing Edge go across to NXT, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so there's kind of two components to this. I think the storyline component is, like on the surface level, quite compelling. Edge doing a tour of all three brands. Who's he going to challenge? If we didn't have the report yesterday stating that it's going to be Roman Reigns, and maybe if you didn't hear that report, it might be very compelling stuff. What's he going to do? I can't wait to see find out. Can't wait to see him interact with all these people on NXT. Cool stuff. The business side of this is that it's WWE trying to boost NXT's ratings because NXT is finished below Dynamite in the rankings on the night every single week since December 2019. That's what it is on the business side of it. I will get a kick, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to get a kick out of Edge showing up on NXT and interacting with people he wouldn't normally interact with. And I really like the Royal Rumble as well. So on a fan level, I'm kind of into this, but if I take off my fan hat, which as you can see I've been wearing this whole video, a little bit more of that business level cynicism does start to creep in. But hey, look, I'm earnestly looking forward to Roman Reigns versus Edge at WrestleMania. I thought the finish to the Royal Rumble was awesome.
Really good.
So there's always two sides to these things. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I'm interested in, which you're going to get on shortly, is I think with Edge, I think what he's trying to do is prove that you can come back if you are a legend, in quotes, or in the Hall of Fame or whatever, and you don't have to necessarily just be there for like just the pay-per-views. I think he's trying to prove, and I imagine that's in the back of his mind because he knows what the conversations are going to be. So him turning up on 3 different brands, yes, admittedly a ratings pop, no doubt about it, but nothing to say that might not be a similar pattern that he follows if indeed that's something he's interested in. And of course, he gets to go and see the missus as well, which is always helpful, isn't it?
Exactly, nice bit of synergy there as well. So yeah, speaking of Edge, his schedule, what's it going to be? Is he going to be a part-timer? Is this little spurt of activity a one-off? No, he's not. He's going to be a full-timer. He's going to be there every week, which is great. Interview with CBS Sports here, talking about how he doesn't want to come back and just do a greatest hits tour. He doesn't want to, just drop his head in every now and then. He wants to tell stories. He wants to work with the newer breed of wrestlers. Here's a direct quote from the man himself here. I came back committed to this. After my family, this is my top priority. If I'm asked to be in a title program heading into WrestleMania, which he has, I'm here every week. That's the way I operate. I'm not going to be a guy who comes in for 1 week and floats off for 8 weeks. If I'm involved, if I'm in the mix, I'm going to be here every week because that's how I operate, and that's good stuff. Great stuff. The ideal scenario from all of this, aside from telling Edge's own story, which I think is very compelling, him coming back and chasing the world title that he never lost, technically a different belt, but who cares? Yeah. Let's not be nitpickers. Let's not nitpick this stuff. I've totally lost my train of thought. Sorry, the grand hope with all of this, when you have a legend like Edge available every single week, is that you will use him to build new stars and use his rub to kind of shine other people up at the same time. Hopefully they're able to do that once they've kind of got the title program out of the way. But I think the title program's going to rule, and I think he's a great sympathetic foil for Roman Reigns as well. And I can't wait to see these guys going at each other every week.
I mean, in terms of characters, it seems like a match made in heaven, Roman and Edge, doesn't it? Like, we've seen how much of a sympathetic babyface he could be in that Royal Rumble. And, I mean, Roman Reigns is the baddest man on the planet at the moment, so putting those two together, even if Edge loses and just gets, like, a prolonged, difficult beating but puts in a good showing against Reigns, you wouldn't be against that. I'd love to see him obviously with the belt from a personal perspective, but still, it's, as you say, it's about the younger talent. That's what I want to see. I think we're all excited now that he's got past, fingers crossed, the Randy Orton moment that he had, which is probably just a safety net for him coming back in. And now I want to see him full steam ahead, working with the new guys and helping bring them forward. You saw the backstage bit with Damian Priest. I think that's what Edge wants to give back. You know, he knows he's back, and this is a real opportunity for him to work with guys who were probably on his dream list, let's be honest, because he's told enough people and listed enough people over the course of many different interviews while sat on the shelf. However, shall we move on to our final story of today, which is regarding Riddle on WWE's main roster and the talk behind his new contract extension with the company. Now, the source for this one is Fightful Select. They've broke the news, basically saying that WWE had been hoping to tie Riddle down to a new contract extension before the end of 2020. That didn't happen. It has now happened at the beginning of 2021, rolled over. The man has been given a 3-year deal with WWE, which will expire at the end of 2023. Now, more details on this in terms of like the deal itself. It's looking like he's going to get a $400,000 downside guarantee, and on top of that, an extra $50,000 for any Saudi Arabia shows that they do, which at the minute is a safe bet from WWE because they can't go to Saudi, I guess. But that's the deal broken down. It's pretty much all I want to get into this. I realise Matt Riddle is a difficult topic in terms of the company. We need to probably note here that this is all coming to time. WWE seem to have doubled down on him, despite the fact he is currently being sued $10 million by Samantha Tavel, accusing him of multiple sexual assault allegations. Andy Murray, as we were praising them for the Lars Sullivan decision, which I feel like was the correct one, this one feels complicated. I think is probably a polite way of putting this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like you mentioned, that court case is still ongoing. It's still open. Riddle filed for a dismissal in December, but the situation rumbles on. So, that's the two sides of the guy, and it's unfair to address one without mentioning the other for sure. I like those numbers. I believe the $400,000 a year and the $50K for Saudi Arabia came out in December. I think that was Dave. I should probably know that, but but yeah, I mean, it's a healthy sum, I guess. Matt Riddle feuding with Bobby Lashley. I find him really hard to analyze at the moment, man. Just gonna be completely honest.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Just gonna be completely honest. But yeah, that's the story. That's where we are.
Indeed.
Those are the facts. Hey, I think we're done here. Are we done here?
I don't know what. You're the boss here, man. I'm just a visitor in your world today, my friend.
You are indeed. Get well soon, Adam Wilborn's boiler. Thank you for joining us today. You can follow us on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. That's where you can send us the Twitter questions. I'm very sorry, but in the mad scramble to prepare for today's news video, we did not have a chance to get to them today. We will get to them tomorrow, I promise. You can follow Adam Nicholas on Twitter at
It's Adam Nicholas, and you can follow Andy Murray on Twitter
at Andy H. Murray. The H today stands for Happy Birthday Haku, the baddest man in pro wrestling history, and of course, someone we have a bit of history with. Wishing him all the best. Maybe not Tama Tonga. Does he still hate us? What's going on there?
Who knows at this point? Who knows?
I don't know what's going on with that. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Bye. Bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, cool.